Ladies and gentlemen, today is April 29th, 2013, and I forgot to close my door, so hang on. Today is day 46 of the KNKL live stream, and I am your host, Keenan Lafferty. Today we are going to be going into a bit of a retrospective because, as you know, we do have an announcement to make. Part 2 of Issue 2 is going to be coming out tonight. And it is going to be very, very awesome. And I have been working tirelessly and semi-destructively to myself to get this thing done. But I am very, very happy to have it out. So I'm actually going to be taking a little bit of a break today. We're not going to be working on anything related to Emma. We're not drawing. We're actually, well, we're not working on it, but we're going to be doing a commentary, another commentary. I had a lot of fun doing the director's commentary for Part 1 of Issue 2. So I'm actually going to kind of go back a little bit of a retrospective and go back and talk about, today we're doing Part 2 of Issue 1, right? So yes, for those of you who didn't know this already, the latest 9 pages are going to be coming out tonight at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So that'll be at like 1 here in Utah, I guess. Yeah, because it's like an hour later. So yes, set your clocks and watches accordingly and be ready for that because it is going to be a good time. Good times ahead. Alright, now the last thing I want to say is thank you to everyone who has been donating this month. We are actually going to be switching out this picture as the month draws to a close, but some people have already gone ahead and begun donating not only their efforts and money, but their time and talents. And I wanted to say thank you to those lovely people. If you want to get your name on this list, simply visit the Emma Comic Online and click the Donators tab to help support the comic, or just do something really, really awesome and I'll put your name on there. So, alright guys, so today is, like I said, a very, very relaxing day. And we're just going to take our time to just kind of rejuvenate ourselves, relax our wrists, relax our back, so we do not develop any sort of terrible tendonitis that would prevent us from finishing the comic as we want to. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into this. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today, we're taking a stroll down memory lane. And yeah, we're going to have some fun here because we're going to be talking about the early layouts and kind of how these things turned into what you saw finally on Part 2 of Issue 1. All right? So, as I've said before, let me go ahead and do this. There we go. So as I said before, most of my templates when I first start drawing the actual comic start out like this, right? I start out with just these really, really quick and dirty sketches of all the pages that I want to do. And then I slowly start refining them, start doing sketches over, then it goes to the lines, then it goes to the colors, and it goes to the masks and all that good stuff. And it seriously feels like I'm about to hiccup, and it is driving me crazy. I was just eating a bunch of sugar snap peas, and I took a big old swig of water before I come up here. I've been getting really into like healthy food lately. My family here eats really healthy, so they have like this giant salad in the fridge at all times, and it's always just like up for grabs. And then we have these little sugar snap peas that I really like. You get to kind of like peel the thing off and then just like eat it whole. I like to imagine that I'm like in a rainforest and I'm just like deserted there, and then I imagine I just come across these sugar snap peas and they're just so decadent and delicious. And then I imagine that that is the only thing that is keeping me from living or dying of starvation. But that's another conversation for another time. Let's get back into this over here. Okay, so as you can see, we're going to be dealing with page 1 right off the bat. So page 1 started off as Emma waking up from her dream, in case you don't remember. Part 1 is the black and white dream, and it ends with her approaching the man in the flower field, and it actually turns out to be a zombie man, and it attacks her, and she wakes up from this dream. So you can see basically what I'm doing here is coming up with a couple different ideas. One of the original ideas was to have her on this hammock here, and it was kind of a more pulled back shot. And I kind of like that, and then I continued down. I was like, okay, we need the establishing shot of the barn just to kind of see where she's living. And then, you know, we'll have a couple conversation panels here. She'll say something about like, oh, is it morning already? She'll kind of like fix her dress, and then she'll start putting on her shoes, right? So I did like that. I liked everything, except you'll see in the second panel over here that what I did was actually pushed the camera in a little bit closer so we could see the expression of her as she woke up. And then we have the same shot of the barn, but the horizon and the vanishing point has been dropped down a little bit more so we can see more of like the roof and all that stuff, which I figured was more important. Then we have the same conversation panels, and then we got the boots! The good old boots. I don't know why I drew them twice, though. That's kind of weird. That seems like a waste of time. And let's go ahead and take a look at what that translated into over here. So, yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is what our final page ended up being. We've got Emma waking up, the nice close-in shot here. And a couple things actually changed from the original idea that I had. Originally, I was thinking about the light kind of shining down from above her, like in front of her. But then I changed it so that the light was behind her to kind of like push the silhouette. So you squint your eyes, you can still clearly see Emma's shape, you know, and like her head and everything. That's a big thing I'm always pushing. I'm always talking to you guys about that, about keeping the silhouettes and the actions clear in your comic. So that way the monitors don't bump together and make noise, and so that your readers can read your comic from far away and then they're not like confused and have to like figure stuff out. Because a great man once said that as soon as your readers have to figure out what's going on in a comic or figure out a layout or try to like figure out what a character's saying because of bad punctuation or you just laid it out wrong, then you have broken the fantasy. You have broken they realize they're just reading a comic, and that's the most terrible thing that you could ever do to your reader. You never want them to actually realize that they're just reading a comic. You want to keep them in this world, in this fantasy, in the story that you're telling them, right? Imagine if you're sitting around a campfire telling a ghost story, and then all of a sudden some kid like flings a marshmallow into your face, you know, and kind of kill the fantasy, take you out of the story. So you don't want that to happen. A flaming melted marshmallow right into your eyeball, and it probably would hurt. So then we have the morning already. I really like doing these things where it's like, hey, if I want your attention somewhere, I'll put like these little like dots. It's kind of like an anime thing where it's like ding, 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 look here, you know. And then she kind of like fixes her dress, and then she starts putting on her shoes. And I always really enjoy thinking about the sound effects of what I'm going to end up putting in. I was like, what sound does shoelace make as you like pull it up? I think it's like a you know, or is it more like a I don't know. You know, so it's quite challenging. Sound effects are very, very challenging. Same with the huff puff. I like the huff puff. There's a lot of little subtleties that go into all these kinds of things that, you know, I was always skeptical about it, because originally when I was doing this, I was talking with John Boy Myers, and John Boy Myers is kind of like my mentor, and he's just a big inspiration to me. He's worked for DC and Marvel, and now he's working over at Riot Games. I talked with him a lot right before I quit working there full time. And he said something about, you know, it's always good to get a professional letterer. Get a professional letterer. They'll do it for, you know, 15 bucks a page and all that good stuff, right? So, but I was naturally kind of not excited about that, because I was like, well, I don't have a lot of money. I can't be forking out $150 every single set of pages right now, right? And I was kind of in a mode where, I mean, I had trusted somebody else to make my website for me before, and they didn't do a good job. Granted, that guy was probably not very professional, and I'm sure the guys that John Boy was referring to me, or yeah, he was referring to me, were much better quality than that guy. But I don't know. I was in the mindset of I just want to like figure things out. I want to figure out just the basis and just the most basic way to do it. That way I at least kind of know what's going on, right? So I kind of naturally just kind of forged ahead and said, hey, I'm going to figure out how to letter this thing myself. And I'm going to save the money and try to do that. And I've actually learned a lot, and I'll actually talk to you guys more about that later. All right, and there's still a lot of things that I have to learn. A lot of subtleties that go into lettering. It's an art form in itself. Sound effect making is an art form in itself, and I'm still learning. All right, so moving on to, we got this panel over here. We got Emma picking up the ladder. I like this. There's a couple things that I changed here that you'll see here. Yeah, I think I don't know, where is that other page where I actually changed this? Oh yeah, I changed it down here. Okay, so this was number 1. I had her kind of reaching down, grabbing the ladder. And the second one is her lifting it, right? So it's a closer shot of it, you know, seeing closer to her. And then we have her dropping down the ladder. And then this was going to be some other frame that I didn't finish because I actually went on to another layout. I decided to almost reverse this. So instead of having the pull-out shot here and then the close-up shot next, I did a reverse. I did the close-up shot when she's picking up the ladder, and then the far away shot when she's actually lowering it over the edge. And the reason why I did this was because I noticed very quickly that, you know, we showed the ladder is there in page 1, and in page 2 it's the same exact angle. And from this angle, it would look like she was kind of reaching between two boards. You know, you kind of see the rungs of the ladder kind of peeking over the edge there. But I really wanted to make it clear that she was grabbing a ladder, right? Because it just looks like a straight board here and a straight board there. So that's why I changed the camera angle to be more above. That way it just clarifies what she's grabbing. And then here we can see even more clarity on that she's pushing it over the edge. She's like lowering it over the edge of the balcony, the higher level of the barn. And then she's looking over the edge here. I decided to push this shot in instead of it being far away like it was originally. Decided to push this shot in to get a little bit more of a clear shot of her face. And then her kind of turning away, I decided it would be really easy to just draw like a wisp of hair, and later I think I add in a little hand there. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that translated to the final. Take a look-see. All right. So yeah, now you can see here basically what's happening. Yeah, we have the nice clear shot of the ladder. You'll also notice that I keep the ladder, like something that's always in my mind is squinting your eyes and can you still tell what's going on, right? So you have a nice clear silhouette of the ladder. I use dark colors here, and then I use the light that's like happening around the area that she's in to kind of reflect off the ground and create that clean shape of what she's grasping, right? And then here we can see that she's lowering it over the edge of this area there. And it looks good. It looks good. And I really enjoyed doing this. I was trying to figure out, like, I thought about doing this at the beginning of issue 2 as well, but I was like, it's going to happen too often. So I'm thinking about, from now on, when I'm going to do this is maybe, I don't even know. I don't know if I'm going to do this exact kind of lettering, like the cinematic lettering again, because it's awesome right in the beginning, but if it happens every issue, like every 30 pages, it's going to get kind of annoying. So I'm probably going to do like a little bit of a downplayed version of this, like throughout, you know, the other issues, or maybe I'll just have it on the front cover. Something like that, I don't know. But I definitely, like, if I did this over and over again, it would kind of take away from how cool this is doing it, you know, for the first time. And then you got Emma lowering the ladder, and then you got the wisp of hair, and then the arm turned back that way. So it's very, very easy to tell what is going on. By the way, one thing that I learned about sound effects is you never want to have them like right on the edge. You know, it's kind of weird. It's like a tangent where they collide right with the edge. So try to avoid that if you're making comics. It's always good. Moving on. Let's go ahead and open up. We're on page 3, right? Yeah. Page 3, aka the axe drop scene. This was another cool thing. I feel like this was a really, really fun idea that I had, where basically what if I took an entire page just to show, you know, Emma was dropping her axe on the ground. And almost think of it as the camera is turned up, and then we watch as the panels progress, the camera turns down to the ground. You know? So that was what I was trying to capture here. As we show Emma here with her hand out, then her hand is open and the axe is closer to us. Then we have a turn in the camera where it just goes right by, and now we're looking down and then it hits the ground. And this actually ended up turning out quite well. I really enjoyed this. But you can see how many times I actually concepted this, like how many times I had to get this right. And I think that was one of the final ones. But this was the first one here. Originally I was going to do it with her hand already dropped it. You know, she would have already dropped it. And then it's like close up of the axe, and then it's on the ground. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted it more like this. You can see I'm putting in the lines and kind of communicating what I want to see there, like the pan of the focus of the camera. And so yeah, then I ended up going for something like this. I thought this looked like Birdo, so I drew a little bow on it, and it's like shooting out an egg. And yeah, good stuff like that. You can see that I have fun while I'm doing this. I'm having a lot of fun while I'm making these panels. And then I did a 4-panel, like a straight down 4-panel. And then I thought, hey, what would be really cool is if, you know, I have like an overlapping panel here and the axe is breaking this panel here. I felt like it would kind of just subtly give a feeling of, ooh, this is like really like popping off the page, as opposed to, 4 clean panels, because whenever everything, this is something that my teacher taught me, or John Boy taught me, my mentor, my sensei. He taught me that, save breaking the panel, save it, right? There's so many comics out there that like are constantly breaking the panel with their chat balloons, with just like this guy's like fingers sticking over the edge, or just like little tiny things that don't mean any, they don't have any significance, but they're sticking over the edge. And that can be a stylistic approach, and I think that there's a lot of comics that can do it, but he says that there can be a lot more power added to when you do break the panel if you save it, right? Put everything inside the panel until you really want to break it, and then when you do, subconsciously it just has way more impact to your reader. At least that's what he told me, and I decided to run with it because I figured he knows what he's talking about since he's worked for DC and Marvel. Alrighty, what are these things here? These look like some other final layouts. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at how that translated. Alright, so you can see here, I decided to help convey the animation of what's happening by showing Emma holding the axe first as opposed to straight up dropping it, because the page before, if you recall, she's just walking away from the ladder. So if the first image on the next page is her already having dropped it, you don't get as much of the, it's almost like there's tension here, right? You would lose the tension if this was the first panel that you saw, you would lose the tension. But subconsciously, there's so much more tension in this, like seeing it held out and then dropped. And I think it just helps communicate it as well. I mean, if you saw this, you'd be like, what the heck is that? At least now you can see, oh, there's that, and then it's getting closer. And then you have this happening where it's going right by you, and it's breaking the panel. So subconsciously, Jedi mind tricking you into thinking that, whoa, this thing is like popping off the page. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's awesome. And it's like shining in the light, and then you have the big pacaf into the dirt, as it hits the bottom. And you can see kind of the little the camera trick as it kind of pulls down and then looks at the ground. And that was a lot of fun. An interesting thing that I did here was usually you want to make the sound effects very, very loud. And like, this is another thing that John Boy taught me. He said, the sound effects are going to seem louder and more prominent if you make them like, this is very, very like brown and kind of blues, a lot of desaturated colors. So if you make your sound effect very, very saturated and like a complementary color to whatever color palette you're using, it's going to stand out a lot more. It's going to be a lot more loud and a lot more impactful. However, I would have wanted to do that, but I wanted people to sort of like have this be a subtlety. I wanted this to be a little bit more camouflaged in there, so it's like the sound of it hitting the dirt, the pacaf, like that. And I didn't want to take it too much. I didn't want it to take too much attention away from this, because this is what I really wanted people to see. Like kind of like at the same time. It's like the axe, and then ooh, wow, more cool credit thingies. And so that was the reason why I did that. And you'll see, from this point, I actually start doing more of that contrasting colors. I think this was the last issue where I kept using like the same colors as were already in my palette. Okay, moving on to page 4. Page 4 was a fun one because I always like to challenge myself to use different setups, different like frame templates. And again, this is where a lot of the experimentation is going on in these areas here. I'll be like, oh, okay, well, this next panel that we're going to be seeing is going to be Emma climbing down a ladder. So wouldn't that be cool if there was a panel on the left side, right? On the left side of her climbing down the ladder, and it takes up the entire left side of the page. It's a really long panel, and then 3 on the side next to it. So that was kind of a fun idea. Tried it out, and it ended up working. I was like, okay, so we'll have her climbing down here. We'll have the boot, touching the ground here, reaching down, grabbing the axe from the ground. And yeah, and then just walking towards the exit of the barn. And let's go ahead and take a look at how that turned out. I actually really, really enjoyed this. I really, really liked doing this stuff. One of the big things that I was always afraid of making comics was backgrounds, right? But I didn't realize how simple backgrounds can actually be. Once you've established where the characters are interacting, you can actually get away with very, very simple shades, simple shapes and colors, right? Like if you look here, these hay bales and all these things, you almost want to think of them as just shapes, right? They're just shapes with a little bit of shading on them. And then I go back in and I kind of sharpen the edges, with the Reptar brush, for those of you who use the brushes that I uploaded to DeviantArt. That's a little brush that looks like a Reptar. Has like a cool sharp edge, and that's what I use for the lines as well. Kind of gives them that kind of rough, kind of edgy look to them. If you zoom in, you can see that there. And I really, really like that. I think that's really cool. A reason why I use that brush is because line art is actually not one of my favorite things to do. It's actually one of my least favorite things to do. So what's cool about this is that it already has texture in it. So when you have things like this, like these little things that kind of stick off the edge, it just adds to that character of the line. So you can be a little bit more messy, you can be a little bit more free and creative and more free-flowing, and any of those little mistakes that you make actually just add to it. So I really, really like it for that reason. Whereas if I was using a clean brush, your lines would have to be just like spot on all the time. And these are still pretty clean lines, but it just kind of takes away that one last little bit of, you know, how anal you have to be about your lines. So yeah, yes, I'm liking this very much. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got page 5. Page 5, we are going to have, Emma walking this way. Okay. So we got Emma walking, dragging her axe, and as you can see, originally I had the blade actually turned and pointed downward. And I changed that because I wanted it to, you know, like, I don't know, I didn't want her to like be dragging it around on the blade all the time. I mean, that's one thing they say you're not supposed to do, right? Because it dulls the blade. And she needs to be able to chop through some zombie necks, you know, in the next few pages. So obviously, you know, we don't want to have a dull blade. So I turned that around. Then we have her kind of reaching up to the edge of the door. She lets out a sigh before she walks out, which is supposed to signify that she may know it's out there, and she's already kind of preparing herself mentally to, you know, see what's out there, preparing her, maybe her fantasy or whatever for what she wants to see. And then she walks out, and it kind of like the light overtakes the panel. And this is something that I honestly look back on this page, and I feel like I could have done it a little bit better. But, you know, whatever. It's all good. You're learning stuff. It's not always going to turn out perfect the first time. And as long as you just do it better the next time, then you're all good. Alrighty, people. So, we're going ahead, and I really liked like the shaft of light kind of coming down on her leg here. Very atmospheric type things. I really like playing up like atmosphere, like tones and color theory and mood setting. This is all stuff that I've always been interested in, and I never really knew a lot about it. I learned a little bit about it when I was working at Riot and setting up the mood and these illustrations and the splash arts and all that stuff. And so now what I'm doing is hoping to take what I've learned over there, and move it over to here, and hopefully set some cool moods and tell some cool stories, because I want this comic to be heavily visual. I want it to be heavily visual, and I want it to be an experience. It's not one of those comics where, you know, it's just going to be like two characters, like one character over here and another character over here, and there's going to be like constant like bubbles upon bubbles, like just going down and down, like this long conversation that takes you like 2 minutes to read through one panel. I just don't see that as a very exciting or immersive experience. If there's going to be a conversation, there might be maybe 2 or 3 bubbles max in a panel, and then I'll switch the camera angle, you know, much like you would see in a movie. You know, you'd have the character talking, and then you have maybe the reverse shot over the shoulder looking at the second character. Those types of things. I'm really trying to set this up almost as if it was like a storyboard for an animated cartoon or a movie. Yeah, we'll see if that serves me in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to page 6. Alrighty, this one was pretty fun. This was a cool fun idea that I had, and we're gonna go ahead and move into the layout of that. Where is it? Where are you? Oh, here we go. Alright, so you can see this is how page 6 started out. Right over here. And this is how a lot of my backgrounds actually start out. I don't know if I've done any, like a tutorial on backgrounds or how I color them. I know I did a tutorial on backgrounds a few days ago, but I don't know if I showed you guys how I quickly color stuff. But I started out a lot of my backgrounds in just black and white values, as you can see over here, right? And the reason why I do this is because it very quickly allows me to set up a general feel of what I'm looking for. And I kind of wanted a little bit of like a kind of gloomy, semi-overcast day, but it's still kind of like calming and relaxing, right? With kind of like this shaft of light kind of poking through and kind of leading our attention to this house, hopefully. I honestly I look back at this thumbnail and I still think that it was just a little bit better. I feel like the mood is just a little bit better in this thumbnail than what ended up going into the final comic. But you can see that's just kind of how I set things up. Let's go ahead and move on to what it turned out to be. So yeah, I feel like the biggest thing that I lost from the thumbnail to this was just a little bit of the depth in the clouds. Like, here, I'll show you. I'll show you again. Like, if you look at these clouds over here, I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot more depth happening here. Like, it just goes further back, further back, further back. And then in the final piece, not quite as much. And I don't know, that might be just me being nitpicky. I'm not sure if it really matters. But yeah, I mean, it definitely got the general idea and the general feel across that I was looking for. It's very overcasty, but it's got kind of like some nice blues and purples in there. A little bit of red leaves on the trees, kind of relaxing, but it's still like something just feels a little bit off about it, right? So, yes! Yes! Let's move on to page 7. Which is, I think from here on out, I'm not sure exactly where the rest of these pages went because I was kind of like, I was hustling through these at this point. This was one of the times where I was working destructively. I was doing that. You know how lately I've been talking about resting more than you work, right? The 26-34 rule and how awesome that is. Every time I go against it, or every time I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that, or you know, I don't set my alarm and work for 26 and then rest for 34, I actually end up regretting it quite a bit. So this was an example of before I even heard about that rule. So naturally I was like, all right, well, we're just gonna go and go and go and go and go, right? And you know, because we gotta get this part out, we gotta get this part out, right? It's been 3 weeks and people can't wait that long. People can't wait that long or they're all gonna leave. They're all gonna hate me. No, we can't let that happen. So I just went and went and went. And I think this is a good example of, I learned this lesson really well here, that, you know, I need to pace myself and I need to be okay with this thing taking time. I need to be okay with the comic taking time. Because really, when I think about it, it's like, I got all the time in the world to make this. I've got years ahead of me, right? Even if it takes 50 years to make this thing, it'll still be done by the end of my life. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to happen, right? And I don't think it'll take 50 years to like complete the story, but you know what I mean. You got plenty of time. You got plenty of time. And I really think that the people that I care about reading this, or that I really want to give this out to, are the people that are interested in why I'm doing it, right? They're not just, you know, the people that come in and read the comic and then just take off, don't watch the show and all that stuff. That's cool. That's cool, but I'm really not making it for them, you know? And really, I mean, you could argue that I'm not making it for anybody. You know, I'm making it for myself. And everybody else who just wants to join in on the experience, check it out, is more than welcome to. And I think that's a really good mentality to have. Because as I continue, let me talk about these things. I think it's a really good mentality to have. Definitely have the idea that, hey, I want to bring value to these people. I want to bring value to a massive amount of people. Definitely have that as your mentality, but don't allow the opinions of others to shape how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your product to a crazy extent. You know what I mean? Definitely value feedback, but it's very easy to get caught in the trap of, oh man, I hope people like this, or oh no, somebody said this one person said something bad about it. Oh, it sucked, you know. And people get so down about that, and it's really easy to. It's actually very easy to. I find myself getting into that. In fact, I'm actually very anxious about tonight's release because you know, I just constantly, I get really anxious whenever I release anything. You know, and sometimes it could be something as simple as a YouTube video. Like sometimes the Thoughtful Thursdays, when I first started doing those, or just kind of talking about my feelings and kind of my thoughts about life, I was actually really self-conscious about putting those out because I was like, I don't know if people are going to like this. I don't know if I might like actually make a lot of people angry with this. People might not like me, you know, but I had to get past that. And similarly tonight, after the launch of the new part of issue 2, I'm just going to release it, and then I'm just going to relax, and then I'm not going to think about it anymore, and then I'm just going to continue, and I'll check out the comic or the comments maybe a day later or 2 days later, and then you know, I'll just keep going, keep on keeping on. So let's go ahead and get back into this after that little tangent there. So page 7 was interesting because we got a lot of panels, and I really like introducing some of these really panel-heavy pages every now and then. I think it's really, really fun. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels in this one. And this one was really, really fun. And I think a really cool thing that makes a good layout of panels and just like interesting camera angles is just having plenty of variety. You know, as you got like this really close-up shot of Emma's face so we can see her emotion. Then you got this really kind of pulled back shot so we can see her body language and, you know, what surrounds her, her scenery. Another thing here of her walking. And, you know, like the back of her head for whatever reason. But we're kind of focusing on buttons at this point, you know. And, yeah, I really like that, you know, like low shots. Most of the time, I had a friend tell me that, like, if you just make the camera at a low angle, it'll make everything look cooler. You just put the camera at a low angle, and it'll make any shot, any idea, or any, it'll basically make everything look more epic. So, yeah, I like to do that at specific times. I like to keep that in mind. All right. So moving on. Moving on. You guys are saying you're excited for tonight. Woo! Me too. Super excited. And now, like, the funny thing is that, I mean, I'm getting this part out. It's done, and I am just super excited for the next one, right? Because we're gonna be getting going on that like right away, and you know, as soon as we hash out the rest of the story, right? We got a general idea of what we want to happen, but we want to throw in all those like extra little flavor bits and flavor crystals for everybody to enjoy with their eyes. Jam those flavor crystals in your eyes, and you'll enjoy it. All right, page 8. This one was a fun one. Couple things that went on with this. You can see how simple it started out as. And really, I think this is something that I always talk about. I always talk about this is where the comic lies. Right here, this is what the comic is. The comic is not this. A lot of people think that this is what I draw, right? People ought to think this is how you make a comic. You got to draw this exact thing, get everything right off the bat. But it's not. It's absolutely not. You must start your comics like this. This is where all the character, where all the action, all the layouts, and everything is found. And you do it very, very quickly, so that way, if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, you only wasted maybe 5 or 10 minutes and do it again, right? Don't spend hours and hours and hours trying to hash out this page, and then you end up hating the whole thing, and then you wasted like an entire day. Don't do that. Don't do that. I will find you. All right, so you can see here Emma saying something, and then she's opening the door, and then we see the zombie, and then she gets scared, right? So this is another good example of something, in retrospect, I would have actually liked to do a little bit different. I didn't realize that when people read this panel, when people read this, it's so easy for you to latch on to where human faces are. So quick, like our natural instinct, I guess you could say, or natural reaction is when we see a human face or something that looks like a human face, we will notice it, we will look at it, right? So even though you would normally read from here, you know, maybe to here, and then you go down to here, right? Our natural instinct is to go from here to here, right? So we instantly basically know what's going to happen, and then you kind of got to read backwards, and then you see, oh, okay, she opened the door, and the zombie came out, right? And then that. So this is when I realized the importance of whenever you're creating an element or a scene of suspense where something is going to surprise you, always put it on the next page. You know what I mean? So what I should have done in retrospect is I should have had an opening door here, and then have the opening door like that panel. I should have situated these panels in such a way that this zombie did not show up until the next page, right? That way you're like, oh, something's behind that door. You turn the page and it's like, oh, whoa, it's a big zombie, right? And then he's breaking the panel, right? And I could have done an even cooler shot of him breaking the panel, much more dramatic. Yeah, but that's all in retrospect. And it's something that I can actually go back and edit these things later, you know, if I ever do like a director's cut of the comic, which was another idea that John Boy gave me. So yeah, lots of cool things that have been being learned. And really, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with things not turning out, like perfect the first time, because that was the idea behind the comic. It's like, hey, I just got this idea. I've never really made a full-fledged comic before. I'm just going to make the mistakes now. I'm going to make all of my mistakes and learn now. So that way in the future, when I bring out all of these other ideas that I have for comics, I can do those even better, right? So that is what Emma is. Emma is just that. It's that first step. It's that first step. And very quickly, it's already become, you know, my favorite comic. It's become like more of a favorite than any of my other ideas, you know? But just that's because of the work we've done on it so far. And over here, it looks like we have like another idea for a panel that didn't get used. Looks like right here, remember Emma was walking down the hill, and then we have her walking towards the house. I think there was originally going to be like a tree here, and I eventually just kind of scrapped that and put like some bushes or something. And then, yeah, this was the scene where normally it's like Button's head, and he's kind of looking to the side, and then Emma's like waving to him. But I changed it so it was like a lower angle. Again, make things more cool. All right, so the next panels here, or the next pages, looks like they're existing over in this area for the most part. Yeah, just general ideas, general pointers. This one was very, very rough. You can look at how rough this started out as. It's just, okay, I want the zombie to be coming out, like reaching, and then Emma is going to kick him, and then you got this action panel here of him kicking in the stomach. She's going to kick him back into the door, and then slice his head off and embed her axe in the door frame, right? So naturally, I wanted to have a really cool action shot of her kind of like after the kick, like after she kicks out, I wanted her to almost like use the momentum and like spin all the way around with the axe. And I had to figure out how I was going to show her body like spinning and have it look cool, right? Have it look believable. Like you can tell what's happening. So this was another interesting, like I could see it clearly in my head, and it was going to be a challenge. I knew it was going to be a challenge to put it from my head to paper. But you can see how I just start experimenting with things. You can see how kind of messy my sketches start out with. And really what I'm doing here is I'm paying attention to the motion. Much like I was talking about using the force of the artist. Don't draw the head and be like, okay, well, I want her to be swinging the axe, but, oh yeah, well, her arms need to be more like this. So let's go ahead and like lasso those and like move them over. You know, like if we had this and we like lassoed them and tried to like mess with them, you know, you don't want to do this too much, right? Because this is going to start to like stiffen up things, and it just kind of like starts creating headaches, and it's not very fun. Speaking of headaches, my head is freaking heating up because of that beanie, and it is hot in here. So it's time to open a window. Hopefully there's no more screaming children outside. Ugh. Holy moly. Summer's a-coming. And hopefully my hair isn't too crazy. No, looks good. All right. So, yeah, like I was saying, don't draw from the head. You want to start with just simple ideas. The head is a circle. The body is just shapes. And you're really trying to capture just the force of something swinging, right? Spinning around and swinging. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that turned out. Yes. Yes. All right. So again, using a little bit of the anime, you know, attention things like, hey, look here, right? Like, that's her boots, about to kick him in the stomach, so you gotta look here, right? And then you get the little, again, look at how the word here actually uses the same color palette as what's happening in the background. And in some ways, I might be okay with that, since we're kind of like in Emma's fantasy at this point. Maybe like the sound effects that happen there will be kind of grayed out. I don't know. But if I was doing this again, I'd probably make it a little bit more saturated or a little bit of a different color. And then you got here. Now you can see the spinning motion that's happening here. And I think a big thing that really helps me convey motion in the comic is doing stuff like this. is kind of putting these little trail lines coming off here, where it's kind of like I don't know exactly what it's called, but it like creates a little tail off of whatever object is moving. I really like doing stuff like that. So I created one here and one off the boot. I think it really helps to show that, oh, that thing is moving. These two things are moving very quickly. And you're like, oh, okay, well, she's obviously spinning around and she's using the momentum. She's going to cut this thing's head in half. And yeah, it ended up working with extreme success. I really, really like this. Even looking back, I still think that this panel turned out pretty good. I'm still pretty happy with it. Maybe it could have been done slightly better, but it gets the point across. And yeah, I think a big challenge here was having the character, having the zombie. You notice how I lightened up his pants and lightened up these things as if there was like some atmosphere between them. And the reason why I did that was to clearly show Emma's shape in front of the zombies, right? Because if I kept his clothes black here, her form and her shape and her silhouette would not be as easy to read. Another way that I could have fixed this also would have been to keep the zombies' clothes dark and then possibly made Emma a lot brighter, right? So it's almost like a reverse silhouette. She's bright and everything behind her is dark. Same thing with like the inside. You notice how I made the inside of the house kind of bright? I figured, well, there's probably a lot of like reflected light coming in through the windows, so naturally it would be kind of like lit up in there. And then we got the awesome zombie chop. Gotta love that. You got the splat going on. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was like the same color as the blood and it kind of looked like it was like spitting out, you know? I like that. So I like the motion of what's happening here. However, I really think I should have used a better color because it just blends in too much. It's kind of hard to pick it out, right? It's not as loud, right? And then you got the good old comedic zombie head sitting on top of the axe, which is just good measure. Alrighty. Alright guys, so it is about 8:45. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat to questions. Any questions that you have about like layouts or just questions about this portion of the comic in general, please ask them now. I'll take a couple questions and then we will end episode 46 of the KNKL live stream. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue relaxing, continue meditating after a long, hard, strenuous work month on part 2 of issue 2. Just a lot of stuff. Not just working on the comic. I mean, sending out the posters, moving, you know, all this stuff. And taxes, you know, how fun is that? All those good things happening. But yes. Ask your questions now or forever hold your peace. Alrighty. Let's see here. Kilner is asking, do you have any plans to color the first part of the comic? Or do you like the dream being black and white? That's a great question, Kilner. I actually planned it out. I planned for it to be black and white because A, I saw this as a double kind of positive. I decided, and I actually pull it up while I'm talking about it. I decided it would be a good idea to have the beginning be in black and white because A, it was going to allow me to kind of figure out a general idea of what my style was going to be. Allow me to get a general idea of what the style was going to be. And like talking about like masking, how is it going to handle the coloring, you know, like the background dudes, like are they going to be lined or are they going to be kind of painted in? I was trying to figure all this stuff out, you know. I don't like drawing interiors, so I was like, am I going to be able to get away with drawing this couch, right, like over and over again? Like, can I do that, or can I just kind of, you notice how I'm like doing a little bit of lines here, but then there's just kind of fades into shapes. So it's kind of doing a little bit of experimentation with the style here. And you'll notice that once you set the scene, you actually are able to get away with almost little to no background detail, right? I love Kate in this. I love Kate in these panels. Yeah. I'm excited to have a little bit more of her. She's supposed to be the more sexy one. I like that. I love me some sexy ladies. I gotta get some more of those in the comic soon. Very, very soon. And this is another example of breaking the panel. Saving breaking the panel for when you really want to. And yeah, I don't plan on going back and coloring these because I really do like, just like the idea of it being black and white because it's a dream, but you don't know that till the end. Someone who's reading the comic for the first time might be like, oh, why is it black and white? And then at the end, you know, you notice that it's a dream, and then it's like, whoa, the last panel's in color, and it's like, this is going to be a color comic. Then you get all excited, and yes, good things follow. Yes, yes, yes! Can I release the comic sooner? This one, no, but future ones, yes, I will be releasing them much sooner. We have been working long and hard to figure out how we can get a bit more of an efficient process going for the comics to get the same quality, more efficient, and actually higher quality and more efficient. So we got good things on the horizon, people. Like some awesome people have been stepping up, helping me out, like get the site running, adding more value to the comic and just the community. Awesome things, awesome people. So I'm really, really happy about people stepping up and doing that. And it just seems like I'm just meeting the right people at the right time, and I'm so happy. I feel so blessed. I'm really, really happy to be where I'm at, and I can't wait to continue taking this awesome journey with you guys. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and end day 46 of the KNKL Emma stream. Thank you once again for joining me live on Ustream. For those of you on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Epic music queuing up. Come on. Come on. Come on. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Tutorial Tuesday. You guys take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.